I just want to bring them in for you and get the show started. Candace, it's on you.
Thank you, Carrie. Um, this is one of the purposes of us actually coming on the air is we want to educate the community residents. Um, we believe that we do better when we are informed. We make better decisions when we've been educated. And we also make great decisions when we have our questions answered. And so the Eastside Parkways Coalition will be having coming on the air um, on a weekly basis to share information, to answer questions, because we're looking to empower residents about this project that's coming up. We want you to be informed. We want you to make informed decisions, not based on inaccurate information and incitement. We want you to make an educated decision.
Can I say something? Good morning,
Good
community. This is Betty Jean Grant, and I'm just so happy that we have this show, Eastside Parkway Coalition Health Over Highways. And for those who can I say this? If for those who don't know, this is a call-in show as well. If you want to join the conversation, you can call WUFO at 837-1112. That's 716-837-1112. If you want to comment on some of the things that's being said, or you want to maybe have your voices heard, please call in.
Thank you for that. So I want to go around the table and introduce or have each individual that's here today with us to introduce themselves. To my right, I'll start to the right.
Hi, Brad Wales. I'm an architect and clinical assistant professor at UB in the architecture department and co-founder of the Eastside Parkways Coalition.
Good morning, Denise Barr. I'm known as Mama Barr in the city. I am a community advocate in the Fruit Belt neighborhood. I also work in a number of social justice areas. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Lee, and I'm a community activist, and I'm also a resident of the community in which the tunnel will be affecting.
And I am Betty Jean Grant, a proud member of Eastside Parkways Coalition, as well as the sister-in-law of a resident of Humboldt Parkway. So I'm here on his behalf as well as the community's behalf. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So I'd like to start our program by inviting Ms. Barr and Ms. Lee and Betty Jean Grant to share their stories about a time when this project actually began back 60 years ago. What they've experienced, what their family members have experienced, so that we can bring that history forward so that people understand why we are here and why we're having this conversation. So we'll start with Mother Barr.
Thank you. I appreciate that. In all full transparency, I had left this city in '62. I had been transferred. I moved and I was living in Canada. I have been back and forth since I was probably about 9 or 10, and then I permanently lived in Buffalo now since '94. However, I mean, I live in a house that's been in my family now 4 generations. I have another grandchild coming, so maybe it'll be 5 generations now. No girl, she's got good bones. But I have seen, as a matter of fact, yesterday, I'm walking through the neighborhood, you know, you're always being greeted and talking with the neighbors, and I find out that another one of my neighbors had a stroke. It's heartbreaking because we know what has happened with the quality of air and the condition in our neighborhood, you know, for our residents. And it just leaves you feeling so bad because there's nothing you can do about it for that person right now. But you know, the struggle to try to make people aware of what the health conditions are, even in my own family, I have a number of people that had stroked out. My youngest son had severe asthma. And so I recognize, you know, the lack of quality of air in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty?
Okay, so my involvement with the Humboldt Parkway initiative might have been before it even had a name. I was a Buffalo County Council member, I think in 2003, and I served with the former Senator, former Councilmember Antoine Thompson. And I recall having a meeting set up with a gentleman who I didn't know at the time. His name was Clark Eaton. And he came to my office and he talked about filling in the Humboldt Parkway. And I'm looking at a big tunnel, I'm looking at an expressway, I'm looking at, oh, it's not going to happen because they don't ever go back and replace or restore something that they have taken away. So we stuck with it. But we listened, and then Antoine, when he became a senator, went to Albany, and he was the first person to work with Rock. I'm not sure what their names were called then, but he worked with them to ensure that they got Chris People Stoked to develop the first grant, a state grant to give them, I think it was $10,000. Antoine Thompson, which should get a lot of credit, was very instrumental in doing that. And they talked about restoration. But fast forward, I joined Rock, I guess around about 2011 or 12 when I was a county legislator, and we had meetings at the Science Museum, and I kind of drew back. I became involved lately when they had restarted a meeting, and I attended one at the Science Museum, and I recall Denise, a friend of mine who grew up on East Ferry Street when she was a little good baby. She was very perturbed because she said that that meeting, they only had display, they only had information. They weren't engaged in the community. She said, I don't know what's going on. I have a family home on Humboldt Parkway that we're going to pass through generations, and I'm concerned about it. But I'm concerned about it because they're not talking to us. And I said, well, what are you going to do? She said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, there's something about a tunnel that they talk about. She said, tunnel. She said, I know nothing about that. My relatives and neighbors on Humboldt Parkway knows nothing about that. They don't know anything about that. And so based on her conversation, I started attending meetings. Then I met somehow, I'm not sure which members of the East Side Parkway Coalition. I met them. I was invited to a meeting at the Delavan Grider Center, and I went to the meeting, heard more and more. And what they had in line for the city of Buffalo and for the Humboldt Parkway and for this region was restoration, complete restoration. You know, I'm a history buff, and I like history, and I like the fact that we were one of the first parkway system in the world. That Frederick Lloyd Umstead and his partner came to Buffalo, was hired for Buffalo to put the first world-class parkway system in this world in the city of Buffalo. And so I said, well, that's a good idea. Let's work towards that. So that's how I got involved with the East Side Parkways Coalition.
If you could share some information about your family that's lived along Humboldt Parkway for us, Betty.
Yeah, I have, he's very laid back, so I won't call his name, but it's my brother-in-law. And he's been, his wife's family had the house since the 1960s. They're probably one of the first multiracial black families that moved, or black family that moved on Humboldt Parkway. So they live on Humboldt Parkway near Brunswick Boulevard. They've been there since the 1960s. There's a lot of medical illnesses in their family, COPD, respiratory illnesses, asthma, name a few. My son-in-law, he's been there. He's been married, I guess, 30 years. So we've been there about 30 years. He has respiratory illnesses. So I won't, name specifically because I don't have that permission. And I'm trying to get him involved to be a plaintiff. You know, when we were lobbying people that they had a voice and they had an opportunity to be a plaintiff, he was one person I approached, but at that time he was not concerned. His health issues has decreased, so maybe the next time around when there is a time where we can add more plaintiffs to the lawsuit, I think I'm going to encourage him to join because he can tell firsthand what his health was. He never smoked. His mother-in-law never smoked. His sister-in-laws who lived there and brother-in-law that lives there never smoked. And so they all had respiratory illnesses, but none of them, would smoke, what you would think would cause them to have those diseases, but that wasn't true.
Wow. Thank you. Ms. Lee?
Hi. I love my community. We have fun, we come together, we have Juneteenth, we have the Pine Grill, we have Jefferson Live, we have everything. It's just beautiful how the community comes together. But at the same time, we are dying.
Yes.
The East Side, Buffalo, is a cancer cluster. And the Humboldt 33, it contributes to it. We have vehicles, we have noise, we have exhaust systems that are coming through our communities and leaving bad air. As I explained to someone else, this tunnel that they're going to be bringing to our community is like a chamber. It's going to be a guide to further pollute the air. It's going to be increasing the noise. It's going to be increasing the accidents. I'm concerned about how they're going to address emergencies. I'm concerned about the air quality as far as things getting worse. I have seen people in my neighborhood fall again and again from all kinds of heart diseases, cancers, bronchitis. They suffer from bronchitis, asthma, and it's all attributed to that expressway. The tunnel is not the answer. It will only concentrate, it will only increase the pollution in our area. I don't see how it's going to improve anything because of the cost. It doesn't make any sense to me no matter what way I look at it. It's not going to help us financially. It's not going to help us physically. It's actually going to kill future generations. I'm not going to sit quietly and let this happen. I cannot. I will not. My mom died of some type of heart disease. It was lung related. She ended up going on oxygen and eventually she died. We didn't live in a smoking household. Neither one of my parents smoked, but somehow my mother had a breathing condition in which cysts started to grow on her lungs. I take it personally. I love my community, as I said before. And I want us to continue to live and not die out. This is not the answer. We need to fill in the expressway. We need to bring it back to its original form because based on the history, it was illegal with what they did in the first place. They came in, divided our community, and now we're dying. Again, I'd like to see it filled in. I'd also like to add that with all of these diseases that are occurring, because it's happening, our people are getting sick. And now, in order to have some kind of medication to try to help, they're now shutting down the pharmacies. So now we're facing the bad air, lack of help for our health issues. It just doesn't make any sense to me either way, any way you look at it. The best thing to do is to bring back the trees so we could get the clean air, to cover that expressway. I had looked at a report last week. Now, the index quality should be 0 to 50. The area in which they want to to put the tunnel, last week it was at 140. That is ridiculous. So, as someone that loves her community and will continue to fight for her community, I say, fill it in. Thank you.
So, Brad, I want to bring you in, and let's just talk about where our residents, right around the 33, as it pertains to their health issues, the percentage and the life expectancy. Can you talk about that for us, please?
Sure. Uh, First of all, Candace, I'd like to start with an apology. Um, as an architect and someone who's concerned with, uh, the architecture of the city and the health of the city, you could always see for years, you could see the deterioration around the 33. But until I met you, we really never started hearing, or I never started hearing the intense health effects that were really, as you the question you asked, it's right there on the surface. The entire city, should be up in arms about this on behalf of residents who have suffered for decades. And it's my bad that I didn't get involved sooner. We're all busy and just
Living life,
just didn't
taking care of
just
children.
didn't do it. So I apologize for that. Having said that, though, when we did start getting involved in the fall of 2023, we started hearing story after story, just like you just heard now. And there's hundreds and maybe thousands of more stories like this. Right now, since the expressway, but right now, low life expectancy right around the Kensington Expressway is in the 99th percentile in New York State. I mean, you can't just say that and then be like, oh yeah, that's just another fact. Think about it. People are dying younger right next to this expressway than anywhere else in New York State. In fact, anywhere else than the entire country. Low life expectancy on either side of the expressway is in the 95 to 100 percentile nationwide. And that's where we're at right now. I got a lot more facts and figures for you any old time, but I'll leave it at that.
And so, reason why I got involved in ESP is because my mother suffers from COPD. My sister was a low birth rate baby. She was premature. She, to this day, still has lung issues. She has asthma. And I think that before Brad and I had the conversation about the Kensington 33 project, it never dawned on me that the conditions that my sister endures, that my mother has, could even be directly related to environmental issues based on where we live. We've lived along the Kensington 33 all of my life, all of my mother's life. And I never once thought that where we lived in this beautiful place could be killing my mother or my sister. It never occurred to me that. But my mother is an educator, retired now, and my sister works in the community. So it's not like they worked at the steel mill or they worked at the Chevy plant, where they could have their job reflected or caused them to have these health issues. And I'm sure that a lot of people who are suffering, who have suffered, who have died, did not work in those types of jobs, who have been silenced because they're no longer with us. Their life has been cut short. So this is it's a lot. It's a lot. And the project, if we allow what's on the table to happen again, we won't be able to change it for another 60 to 80 years. You know, they talk about the lack of trees on the east side, the lack of green space, on the east side. And COVID really showed us that our one park, the MLK Park, can't hold a whole community. When we were sequestered in our homes and we were finally able to get out, that park was jam packed, you know, and maybe folks who lived in the neighborhood didn't really think about that park and what it could be for the community until COVID, you know. But how easy would it have been to just come and be on the parade? Because I think that's what it was called, right?
Yes.
The parade, with all the magnificent trees and the grass. It would certainly have been, and the use of the park as well. But I think that we would not be all smashed up, you know, in the park. We could be on the parade.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I didn't realize that there's that human element of sickness and illnesses until we started meeting with Eastside Parkways Coalition. I knew that my brother-in-law family had health issues, but I didn't put that in the context of many people. And so when we started doing door-to-door, getting surveys from people who actually live on Humboldt Parkway in the surrounding neighborhoods, we found that there were hundreds of people who either have died or are sick or have family members who are suffering. And talking to the flower guy, Mr. Miles. Mr. Miles has a list that he's been compiling over 20 years of residents who have died and those who are sick on Humboldt Parkway. He, at last talking to him, he had over 35 on his list. And this in addition to the ones that we have identified by going door to door. And, when we started going door to door, I never thought about Humboldt Parkway being disrupted until I stood at Humboldt Parkway in East Ferry. We had those rallies and protests. And hear that tremendous noise that's coming from the expressway. Not just the toxin, but the noise. And I said, how can you day after day sit out there and hear that? And then when I look around, I look at people's front yards, it's warm, they're not sitting outside. I look in the backyard, they're not barbecuing because it's too toxic to do that. So literally they're prisoner in their homes and they have to keep the windows down. And one guy at our first meeting we had said that he hasn't got a good night's sleep since he's been there. That's the 1960s. So we forget about that. And also I want to say why I'm here. People talk about, well, if we fill it in and we're going to have more traffic, how would the expressway get downtown to the medical corridor quicker, or if they need to be? And look around now. And on the expressway now, you don't have that many ambulance on the expressway right now. When you travel on the expressway, you see an ambulance, they go in the side street. They go into Buffalo General through the side street. They don't use the expressway except on very rare occasion. So I think that argument that people need the expressway to get to the hospital quicker is just a myth. That's not happening. And then also the 70,000 cars, there was a survey done that said that 30,000 less people are traveling to Buffalo because a lot of office buildings are not filled, they're empty. And so we had to reassess the argument that tell us we can't do the restoration because half the things it's telling us is not feasible or is not true.
So the other part of that is that during COVID, a lot of people are now working from home. So a lot of businesses are saving money by allowing their employees, particularly those in customer service and in those types of fields of jobs, that you don't have people coming to an office downtown for that.
And our traffic from Canada is down. And so that's going to also feed into having less traffic that's coming in, at certain periods of the day, certain areas of the city. There's been a decrease in the amount of traffic flow coming in from Canada and also going into Canada. So that makes a difference. I also wanted, if I can jump in, obviously I didn't know all of those things early on, but what I did know is that something was wrong with the fact that in the fruit belt, our kids had to play in the street to play football. We had no community center, we had no safe place for our kids to go in. And now that I know what I know, right? And I understand the systemic racism, the history of how poor communities get locked in. And even in talking about the medical buildings, I say to people all the time, think about how, in my community, yeah, we've got all these beautiful medical buildings off our perimeter, but so what? Look at, if you pass through where those buildings are during the weekdays anytime between 9 and 2, and you see the flow of traffic just from there, how congested just that is on that side. Yes, we have a strong history and a memory of our kids were strong. They were out there in the streets, they were playing flag football and all of that, but that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make what happened to our communities right. And now even, thinking about how our kids were out there having fun, right? They were out there running around, but they were also breathing in all of that toxin long before we even knew that it was a problem. These are kids. And if we don't care about what happens to our kids, if we don't care about what happens to, populations inside the city, then we really don't care about people at all.
And to add to that, when you think about it, where are the hospitals? They're along the Kensington Expressway. So we have the workers, we have the patients. They're also dealing with what the toxins are that are coming from the Humboldt Expressway. Not to mention the businesses, also the schools. The children are being affected by these toxins.
Yes.
You have so many schools that are along the expressway where it's open, where they're breathing this in for 6 hours a day.
All right, well, we'll be back next week. Thank you.
Thank you.